Do not be deceived, your destiny can collapse in a single night. One wrong word, one careless step, one unguarded passion, and the door God has been preparing to open may close with a finality that no pleading can reverse. The tragedy is not that you were not chosen, but that you squandered what was entrusted to you. That is the danger before you, and it is nearer than you think. The greatest test of those appointed for great things is rarely their strength, but their restraint. Can you hold back when your heart screams to move? Can you remain silent when your tongue burns to answer? Can you detach from the thrill of a fleeting desire, knowing that to indulge it is to exchange eternity for a moment? Those who cannot bear the silence of waiting will never hear the whisper of God's promise fulfilled. Do not think detachment is indifference. It is not the absence of love, but the purification of it. It is the soul saying, I will not chain myself to what is fragile. I will not enslave myself to what perishes. The man who is free from his emotions does not despise them, but he commands them. He treats them as servants, not masters. And it is only such a man who can walk with God, for God does not dwell in the chaos of passions unruled. You believe danger comes from the outside, yet more men have fallen by the weakness within than by any sword or scheme of the enemy. The adversary need only whisper to your pride, to your loneliness, to your hunger for recognition, and you, in your blindness, will trade your inheritance for his empty coin. Remember, Eden was not lost by violence, but by appetite. The chosen are marked not by their victories, but by their refusals. They refuse the easy pleasure, the quick revenge, the desperate compromise. They can look at what others worship and walk away, not in disdain, but in holy clarity. This is not mine to touch, not yet, not ever. Such restraint is the highest form of courage, for it demands the crucifixion of the self. And here lies the warning. September 9, or any day like it, may not come with trumpet or thunder. It may feel ordinary, even forgettable, yet in such a day you will be weighed, not by the grandeur of your actions, but by the precision of your choices. A moment's folly can dismantle what God has been constructing for years in silence. Your confidence must not rest in the certainty of possession, but in the discipline of surrender. When you can say with joy, if it is mine, it will come. If it is not, I do not need it. You have disarmed the enemy's sharpest weapon. That detachment, that calm refusal to bow to urgency, makes you immovable. For the chosen one, the gravest mistake is not failure, but compromise. Better to stumble in pursuit of God than to stand tall in allegiance to your desire. The former is redeemed, the latter is ruined. Understand this. The greatest betrayal of your calling is not that the world opposes you, but that you betray yourself in a single reckless hour. Therefore guard your steps with trembling. The promise before you is vast, but it is not unconditional. Heaven will not endorse the undisciplined, and so you must learn the holy art of detachment, the quiet power of one who waits, one who walks away, one who stands still when the world shouts move. Only then can you hold what God is about to give, for he does not place eternity in the hands of those ruled by the moment. A single decision, born of weakness or fear, can unravel what years of faith and discipline have built. This is the peril of being human. We imagine that greatness is secured in the vastness of our victories, yet it is so often lost in the smallness of a single choice. A man may labor for decades in honesty, integrity, and devotion, yet in a fleeting moment of surrender to fear, he can undo what time itself seemed to bless. It is the fragility of destiny, that it does not require years to destroy what took years to build. The danger lies in believing that one mistake will be hidden by the strength of past obedience, but the weight of a single act can tilt the entire scale. Think of the soldier who, after countless battles fought with honor, deserts his post one night out of fear. It is not his victories that define him thereafter, but his desertion. Or the leader who has spoken truth for years, but allows one lie spoken in haste to corrupt the credibility of his entire witness. This is the sobering reality. What collapses a wall is not always the thunder of war, but the unnoticed crack that finally gives way. Fear especially is a cunning betrayer. It disguises itself as caution, as prudence, as self-preservation. Yet in its shadow it compels us to retreat from what God has already promised. To act in fear is to deny faith. To act in weakness is to confess that desire has conquered discipline, and in that one instant you may forfeit what heaven intended to place in your hands. That is why vigilance is required, not occasional but constant, for destiny is not preserved by the grand gesture, but by guarding every choice, lest one mistake dismantle all that was prepared. The enemy does not need to destroy you, he only needs to lure you into destroying yourself. That is the subtlety of evil. It rarely comes with horns and thunder, but with whispers that sound like your own thoughts, with desires that feel justified, with shortcuts that seem harmless. The adversary knows that if he can provoke you to act against your own conscience, he has no need to strike you down, for you will have struck yourself. A kingdom often falls not from an invading army, but from betrayal within its walls. This is why temptation is more dangerous than persecution. Persecution strengthens the faithful, but temptation rots them from the inside. A man under pressure may cling to God with desperate resolve, but a man seduced by his own appetite scarcely notices when he has already surrendered. The enemy's brilliance is not in his power, but in his ability to convince you to misuse your own. He cannot strip away your destiny, but he can make you trade it willingly for something fleeting and hollow. Consider how easily a moment's anger can undo years of patience, or how a single compromise can unravel the integrity of a lifetime. It is not destruction from without, but corrosion from within. That is why Scripture warns not only of the prowling lion, but also of the deceitfulness of the heart. Your greatest danger is not always what hunts you, but what persuades you. Thus, the true battlefield is not the world, but the soul. If you guard your choices, if you silence the whispers that bid you betray yourself, then the enemy is powerless. But if you yield, if you consent to his subtle lies, then you will discover too late that you were the architect of your own ruin. True strength is found in the ability to let go of what you cannot control and trust the unseen hand of God. Many imagine that strength lies in grasping, in clinging with unyielding determination, in forcing outcomes by sheer will. Yet what is often called strength is little more than desperation, dressed as courage. The man who clings is ruled by fear, fear that without his grip, the promise will slip away, fear that without his intervention, God may fail to deliver. But real strength is quieter, deeper, and infinitely harder. It is the choice to release what is not yours to command, and rest in the certainty that what belongs to you will never be lost. To let go is not weakness, it is the highest form of courage, for it demands trust in something greater than sight, greater than reason, greater even than desire. The soul that can release its hold on outcomes demonstrates a faith that no storm can shake. Like a child who sleeps soundly while the father steers the ship through darkness, such a soul has resolved that its future is secure not because it is strong, but because God is faithful. This detachment is not indifference, but alignment. It is saying, I will not waste my strength wrestling with doors that God has not opened. I will not exhaust my soul chasing what he has not assigned to me. In surrender you become invincible, for nothing can be taken from one who has already yielded everything to God. The paradox is this: the weaker you seem in letting go, the stronger you truly are. For the man who trusts God's unseen hand no longer fears loss, disappointment, or delay. His power is not in possession, but in surrender, and that is unshakable strength. Emotional detachment is not coldness, but clarity. It is freedom from being enslaved by fleeting passions. To detach is not to stop feeling, but to govern what is felt. The heart that rules over its emotions does not deny them, but refuses to let them dictate the path of destiny. So many are led astray not because they lacked vision, but because they allowed a single moment of unchecked emotion, anger, jealousy, desire, or despair to pull them from the course God had set before them. Detachment, then, is the discipline of the soul that says, I will feel, but I will not be mastered. The world often praises passion without measure, urging men to act on impulse as if spontaneity were freedom. But passion without restraint is a fire without a hearth. It destroys more than it warms. Detachment builds the hearth. It channels passion into purpose, keeping the flame alive but contained, useful rather than ruinous. This is not the absence of love, nor the denial of grief, nor the refusal of joy. It is the ordering of such emotions so that they serve rather than enslave. When you practice detachment, betrayal cannot shatter you, rejection cannot define you, and loss cannot unmake you. You grieve, but you are not consumed. You rejoice, but you are not intoxicated. You love, but you are not possessed. This balance allows you to walk through life with steady feet, unshaken by the turbulence of changing seasons. To be detached is to see with God's perspective, to know that no temporary pleasure is worth eternal ruin, and no present pain can outweigh the glory to come. Such clarity is strength. It frees you from reacting like a slave to circumstance, and enables you to act like a child of eternity. The heart that clings to momentary satisfaction often forfeits eternal inheritance. This is the tragedy of mankind, that what is fleeting so often blinds us to what is everlasting. A man may exchange his birthright for a bowl of stew, not because the stew is valuable, but because his hunger in that moment feels louder than the promise of tomorrow. Desire shouts, eternity whispers, and too many surrender to the voice that shouts. Momentary satisfaction is always deceptive. It promises relief, pleasure, or recognition, yet its reward fades as quickly as it arrives. The hunger returns, the emptiness deepens, and the soul that once settled for less discovers it has traded something priceless for what cannot last. This is why impatience is so dangerous. It convinces the heart that now is worth more than forever. But eternity does not bend to urgency. What God intends to give is not diminished by waiting. Yet what is seized in haste often carries poison. The soul that clings to temporary comforts finds itself unable to grasp what is eternal. Hands already full of perishing things cannot receive what is incorruptible. To release momentary satisfaction requires courage, for it means walking away from what feels certain to hold on to what is unseen. Yet this is the very essence of faith, the conviction that what God has prepared is worth infinitely more than what the world offers in an instant. Every great fall in history can be traced to this principle, the surrender of the eternal for the fleeting. But every great saint has chosen otherwise. They let the temporary slip away in order to inherit the imperishable. So it is with you. If you desire what God is about to place in your hands, you must refuse to cling to what will not last. Confidence is not noise or display, but the quiet assurance that God's timing cannot be rushed. Many mistake arrogance for confidence, imagining that bold words and visible strength prove security. But true confidence does not need to announce itself. It does not tremble when unnoticed, nor panic when delayed. It rests in the deep knowledge that what is promised cannot be stolen, and what is appointed cannot be missed. The one who trusts in divine timing has no need to force, no need to grasp, no need to prove. Noise often hides fear. Those who shout the loudest about their certainty are often those most terrified of silence. But the soul anchored in God does not fear silence, it embraces it. It does not need applause to validate its worth, nor immediate results to justify its patience. Confidence whispers, if God has said it, I need not chase it. It will come as He intends. Such assurance is unshakable because it is rooted not in self, but in him who cannot fail. Impatience, by contrast, is the counterfeit of confidence. It says, I must act now, for God may be late. But the one who holds eternity is never late, and every attempt to hurry his work only delays it. The fruit picked too early is bitter. The gift seized too soon becomes a burden. To wait is not to be passive, it is to actively trust that the unfolding of time is itself a divine strategy. Confidence, then, is stillness in the storm, composure in uncertainty, restraint in temptation. It is the discipline of refusing to rush what heaven is perfecting. The quiet soul, unmoved by delay, becomes the strongest of all, for nothing can sway the one who trusts God's timing more than his own. Mistakes often come not from ignorance, but from impatience and the refusal to wait upon the Lord. Knowledge alone is not enough to preserve a soul, for many fall while knowing the truth. It is the restless heart, unwilling to remain in the posture of waiting, that stumbles into ruin. Impatience whispers that delay means denial, that silence means abandonment, that God's timing is somehow flawed. And so, in the fever of unrest, a man reaches for what is not yet his, or seizes what was never meant for him. In that moment he does not act out of ignorance, but out of rebellion against the discipline of trust. The refusal to wait is a silent declaration that one's own wisdom surpasses God's. It is the ancient arrogance of Adam reaching for the fruit, not because he did not know, but because he would not wait. It is the tragedy of Saul offering the sacrifice, not because he had no understanding, but because he feared the silence and filled it with action. In each case, the downfall did not spring from lack of instruction, but from the inability to bear the stillness of God's timing. Impatience distorts perception. It makes the temporary appear permanent, the partial appear whole, and the counterfeit appear genuine. A heart unwilling to wait loses discernment, for it sees only what urgency allows. Thus mistakes born of impatience are the costliest, because they are chosen with eyes open yet clouded by restlessness. Waiting, though painful, is the furnace where faith is refined. It teaches the soul to bend, to trust, to endure without compromise. To refuse that process is to reject the very strength God seeks to build. Patience is not passivity. It is the shield that guards destiny against the ruin of hasty hands. Those chosen for higher callings must walk differently. Discipline, restraint, and detachment are their shield. The weight of destiny demands a life set apart, for what is entrusted to ordinary men cannot be compared to what is placed in the hands of those marked by God. To be chosen is not merely to be elevated, it is to be burdened with responsibility, to carry a trust so sacred that even the smallest compromise can disqualify. The path of the chosen is narrow, and it cannot be walked with the ease of those who live for themselves. Discipline becomes the guardrail, keeping the soul from wandering into indulgence. It is not punishment but protection, shaping character to withstand what ordinary strength cannot. Restraint is its companion, the power to say no when desire presses hard, to step back when pride urges forward, to remain silent when words could wound. Such restraint is not weakness, it is mastery, the deliberate choice to prioritize eternal purpose over momentary satisfaction. Detachment crowns these virtues, freeing the heart from chains of possession and the tyranny of emotion. The chosen cannot be enslaved by applause nor crushed by rejection, for their calling is not tied to the approval of men, but to the command of God. To detach is to remember that destiny does not hinge on what is lost or gained in the moment, but on obedience to the one who ordains all things. Those who are chosen must therefore live watchfully. Their steps carry weight, their decisions echo beyond themselves. They are not afforded the luxury of casual compromise, for too much depends on their faithfulness. To walk differently is costly, yet it is the only way to hold what heaven entrusts. The chosen are preserved by their discipline, marked by their restraint, and secured by their detachment. Every temptation disguises itself as urgency, but urgency is the enemy of wisdom. Rarely does temptation appear in its true form, for if it did, few would embrace it. Instead, it arrives clothed in necessity, whispering that the moment will pass if you do not seize it now, that delay will cost you everything, that hesitation means loss. This urgency is a lie, for what is truly from God does not demand panic, nor does it expire under pressure. His gifts are never bound by haste, only deception insists on immediate action. Urgency clouds judgment. It forces decisions without reflection, demanding response before discernment has time to speak. Under its spell, men ignore warning signs, overlook truth, and silence conscience, all in the name of avoiding a loss that was never real. The tragedy is that in grasping to preserve what urgency promises, they forfeit what eternity was preparing. A hurried choice may satisfy the moment, but will wound the years to come. Wisdom, by contrast, walks slowly. It pauses, examines, tests, and waits. It knows that truth is never diminished by time and that God's promises do not dissolve because of delay. The enemy knows this too, which is why he stirs urgency, because he cannot defeat a patient soul. The one who waits upon the Lord cannot be trapped, for he is not moved by the ticking of the clock, but by the voice of God. Every fall into temptation begins with the lie that you must act now or lose forever. But eternity does not slip away in a moment, only illusions do. The wise learn to recognize this disguise, to breathe in stillness, and to let the false urgency pass. In that quiet refusal, temptation loses its power, and wisdom secures its victory. To guard your destiny, you must master the art of surrender, not to the world, but to God. Many confuse surrender with defeat, imagining it to be weakness, resignation, or loss of control. Yet true surrender is none of these. It is the deliberate yielding of your will into the hands of the one whose wisdom far surpasses your own. It is the recognition that clinging to your own plans, your own timing, and your own desires will only shatter the very future you are meant to inherit. The strongest souls are not those who grasp the tightest, but those who release the deepest, trusting that God holds what they cannot. Surrender to the world enslaves, for it bends the heart to fear, pleasure, and compromise. But surrender to God liberates, for it aligns you with His eternal design. When you bow to Him, you rise above every false master. You no longer serve ambition, insecurity, or urgency, for you have entrusted your path to one who cannot fail. This surrender becomes a shield. It protects you from wasting strength on battles that are not yours, from pursuing doors that were never meant to open, from fearing losses that were never truly yours to begin with. It is in surrender that destiny is preserved. Abraham found his promise only after laying Isaac on the altar. Christ revealed his glory only through yielding to the Father's will. So too with you, what you refuse to surrender becomes the very weight that drags you down. But what you place in God's hands returns refined, multiplied, and eternal. The art of surrender is the highest mastery of the soul, for in losing all to Him you secure all that truly matters. It is here in this yielded place that destiny is both guarded and fulfilled. Guard your steps, for destiny is fragile yet eternal. Do not let a single careless moment dismantle what heaven has been preparing in secret. The chosen cannot afford compromise, nor can they live as the world lives. Their strength lies not in grasping, but in surrender, not in passion unruled, but in restraint, not in rushing forward, but in waiting upon the Lord. Remember this: what God has appointed for you cannot be stolen, but it can be forfeited by your own hands. One wrong choice may silence a future written for glory, but one act of obedience, one moment of surrender, one decision to wait when everything in you wants to move, this can preserve everything. Hold fast, for eternity is far too costly to be traded for a moment.